Ladies and gentlemen, it is now a special honor for me to have the chance to introduce to you Ambassador Muktar Djumaliev. Ambassador Djumaliev started his work at the State Committee on Economy of the Kyrgyz Republic as a senior expert, and later head of the Department on External Economic Relations. Later on, he was appointed advisor of the Minister of Finance of the Kyrgyz Republic in 1996. He has had a long and illustrious career, holding positions such as Deputy Director on Investments and Coordination of Technical Assistance at the National Bank of the Kyrgyz Republic, the first Secretary of the Permanent Mission of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United Nations Office, Office of the President of the Kyrgyz Republic, and the first Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade and Industry of the Kyrgyz Republic. In June 2004, Ambassador Djumaliev was appointed permanent representative of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United Nations Office and other international organizations in Geneva, including the World Trade Organization and the Swiss Confederation. Ambassador Djumaliev is currently the ambassador of the Kyrgyz Republic to both the United States and Canada, positions he has held since December 2010 and April 2011, respectively. The lecture topic that he has chosen is Environmental Threats and Global Security in Central Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Ambassador Muktar Djumaliev. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and friends, dear colleagues, excellencies, it's a great honor to be here today with you, and it really gives me a good privilege and opportunity to share with you the Kyrgyzstan's development in terms of the last political events which happened in Kyrgyzstan, and I think it was the topic just previously discussed with our friends and colleagues, and I have chosen one of the topic which related to the regional security aspects in Central Asia. So that is why I would like to thank, first of all, the Institute for its efforts to promote the global peace and stability through the supporting the intercultural relations since 1999. ICD became one of the best platform and facilitation to exchange ideas and values, tradition to build relationship or understanding among the states and people and to promote global security. In this regard, the topic of my speech is related to the Central Asia's security, and I have chosen one that I believe it is priority for Central Asia. Let me first briefly introduce of my country, which I'm proud to represent here as ambassador of the Kyrgyz Republic to the United States and Canada. Kyrgyzstan is one of the Central Asian states which gained its independence in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union. We celebrated last year the 20th anniversary of Kyrgyzstan's diplomatic relations with United States. And USA is one of our strategic partners, and we developed close ties and cooperation on democratic, economic, and humanitarian and security fields. Today, Kyrgyzstan is a country with the parliamentary system of governance. For the first time during the years of independence, we created the precedent of voluntary, peaceful, and constitutional transfer of power through the promotion of conduct of democratic elections. Independence and transitional period for Kyrgyzstan from the authoritarian and family clan-based government was extremely challenging, and we pay high costs for the transition. This period was full of political, social, economical, interethnic challenges. We went through the serious school for political struggle and civil liability and moral selflessness. Today, the political diversity and contradictions of the parliament adequately and fairly reflect the real political diversity existing in the country. This allows any fundamental socio-political confrontation to be resolved in a legitimate field of the parliament. We learned following lessons in our transition. First, in Kyrgyzstan, it is impossible to ignore the people. They are the real acting force. Second, nobody has the right to usurp power, and therefore it must be so arranged to prevent its abuse. Third, the leaders of countries should fulfill their promises to the people. And fourth, the policymakers should avoid the use of threats and forces, because every force faces the opposite force. The totalitarian regimes in the world fell on hard times. Broad public access to information tracking events in real time, growing up opportunities in the area of globalization for social mobilization through electronic means are the new challenges in our time. The succession of revolutions and people's revolts swept the Arab countries, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, Syria. However, the Arab Spring does not yet have a positive outcome. The political opposition in these countries continues, innocent people die, and the interim government cannot cope with the crisis and cannot organize elections. Kyrgyzstan managed to promptly overcome the political crisis, the destabilization of the situation, despite its complications, by provoked inter-ethnic conflicts. We were able to turn the situation into the legal constructive directions. We have opened a new chapter in the history of independence of Kyrgyzstan. Many people and experts and politics predicted that in Kyrgyzstan it is not possible to have parliamentary system of governance. But in spite of that, the coalition government has already worked successfully, and this is the second year where the government has the coalition government. Today, the second year, and the salaries of the teachers is growing, the health workers, pensions, and social benefits increased, and the economy is growing. Parliamentary democracy strengthened. If even in the current political situation there will appear a new majority of coalition, it is a quite normal situation and natural process. We believe that Kyrgyzstan has passed so-called point of non-return. We are grateful to the international community for their active support and assistance in strengthening democracy, peace and harmony. The current president, Mr. Atabbayev, assures that Kyrgyzstan's foreign policy will continue its fruitful and equitable cooperation with strategic allies, neighbors and partners for sustainable future. Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me now turn to my topic on the presentation, which is related to the security aspects in the Central Asian countries. The purpose of my speech is to provide you an overview of environmental risk as a consequences of nuclear race between superpowers during the Cold War period and related threats to the global security. The Central Asian states, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, face common security challenges. The strategic Central Asian regions bordering regional powers, Russia, China, and Iran, as an age-old east-west and north-south trade and transport crossroads. The Soviet Union republics had declared their independence by late 1991. Since this largely unexpected beginning of independence, the Central Asian countries have taken some steps in building defense and other security structures and ties. Central Asia states have consolidated and extended their relations with neighboring and other countries and international organizations. These include the bordering close-by countries like Russia, Afghanistan, China, Iran, Turkey, and South Caucasus. The Central Asian countries also seek cooperation of international organizations including World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Economic Community Organization, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the European Union, Commonwealth of Independent States, and NATO. Every Central Asian state has developed cooperation bilateral and multilateral on security aspects, such as to combat drug, arms, and human trafficking, manage water resources, develop and deliver energy, and tackle infection disease. Although much of the attraction of Islamic extremism in Central Asia is generated by factors such as poverty and discontent, and it is also fostered by the groups in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and elsewhere that provide funding, education, training, and manpower in the region. Some of these ties were at least partially disrupted by United States-led coalition actions in Afghanistan and United States call for worldwide cooperation in combating terrorism. Kyrgyzstan became as a part of the anti-terrorist coalition and has provided its territory in Manas airport for allocation of international air forces for the operation in Afghanistan. Growing demand for limited water resources may threaten the stability of the region. River diversion and other overuse and misuse of water have drained the Amur Darya and Sir Darya rivers, that little or no water reaches the Aral Sea, creating region-wide environmental problems. The most urgent aspects, which may have effect on global security, are the risks of huge number of located deposits of the radioactive waste from uranium tailings in Central Asia. It may affect at least 15 million people and the villages living around the Central Asian regions in case of any natural disaster, of any other external effects. There are lack of international attention and cooperation on this issue given to that risk. There is an immediate and urgent hazard of contamination of underground water use for drinking and irrigation. Almost all uranium tailing sites are located upstream in the Central Asia largest river basins like Narin, Chu, and other basins reaches across boundaries and are the water sources for all the region countries. If an earthquake or landslides effects on the site in Central Asian water supply could be put in immediate risk, increase of wastes to the rivers and water sources will radioactively contaminated vast areas of Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, populated by the tens of millions of residents. For over 50 years, Central Asia was one of the main sources for uranium and rare earth elements in the USSR. The mining enterprises that extracted these materials after 1940 left behind enormous amounts of industrial waste, including radioactive materials. The uranium and toxic industrial tailings sites are located in inhabited areas, very often in close proximity to groundwater sources and near the banks of the rivers, which run into the densely inhabited Fergana Valley in Central Asian region. This situation is further complicated by the fact that many burial sites are located in active seismic regions, landslide risk areas, and prone flooding and are the high groundwater zones. There are 73 facilities, radioactive tailings and mining waste sites in the Kyrgyz Republic with total volume of 145 million cubic meters of soiled waste covering an area of 650 hectares. Today, the transboundary risk at the source of radioactive pollution related to the potential movement of radioactive waste materials is present at all mining and mining sites in the Kyrgyz Republic. The most critical situation seems to be associated with the potential risk of the transboundary movement of some of the tailings in Mailisu and Fergana Valley, which may represent a serious danger of other countries in the Central Asian region. People living standards are low and there are no or limited number of jobs available in the former uranium exploitation sites, and this results in residents migrating to other areas to work in order to feed their families. Problem associated with the migrant workers from uranium affected places region in the other areas contribute to further social and psychological and health-related problems, which are intensified by the fear of radiation and uranium legacy sites. Normative and legal provisions in the area of radioactive waste management are inadequately covered by at present. Besides few national laws, there is virtually no legislation, no nuclear and radiation safety, and standards and norms are not adequately addressed. First of all, there is the water pollution, and by the radionuclide and other toxic elements which long half-lives in the various of forms and concentration in waste source in the penetrating the environment due to the inadequate gas and water proofing of the source and gradual degradation of the protective covers and construction. To conclude my statement, I would like to bring to attention our partners that the problem of uranium tailings and toxic industrial waste in Central Asia is extremely serious and challenge for the security millions of people of Central Asia, which may affect at least 15 million people. The situation is further complicated by the fact that many burial sites are located in the active seismic region, landslide risk areas and zones which is very sensitive for flooding and high groundwater levels at the near banks of rivers from the foundation of the extended water basin in Central Asian region. There is an urgent need for the global appeal and to prevent environmental catastrophe in the Central Asia, which has substantial consequences and impacts to the global security. Cooperation is also needed in the global security aspects such as combat of drug, non-proliferation, human trafficking, and manage water resources, develop and deliver energy, and tackle infection disease. During the Rio 20 conference, Kyrgyzstan has initiated a debt swap operation on foreign debt for sustainable development, and we hope that the donor countries, international financial institutions will support our initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for also touching on, I think, a central issue. For me, it's actually an inspiration for cultural diplomacy, in particular the environment, as one looks also at issues such as global warming, etc. These are issues that really we need to collaborate on. Not one country can actually collaborate it, as you illustrated in terms of Central Asia. And I think that's kind of the motivation for me very often with cultural diplomacy. If we have good cultural diplomacy practices, then we'll actually be better prepared when we come to the table to negotiate such issues of the environment. So I appreciate also you making that connection between also the environmental issues and cultural diplomacy. It looks as if you've inspired a number of questions. Let's begin here. As always, if you could stand and briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Zhenya Vechininova. I'm a Fulbright student from Ukraine, studying here in the United States. Thank you, Ambassador Djumaliev, for your presentation. As you know, many post-Soviet states, populations in the post-Soviet states have their loyalties divided between Russia and the United States and other countries, neighboring countries that exert their powerful foreign policy and public diplomacy influence. I was wondering about Russia's public diplomacy influence in Kyrgyzstan, if any. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. Of course, we have, as a part of the Soviet Union, in Kyrgyzstan there was a huge population of the Russian nationalities, and Kyrgyzstan, for example, in the capital city, in Bishkek, we had almost 70% of the Russian nationalities who was living in the capital city, and the 30% of Kyrgyzstanis who was actually in the capital city. Today, yeah, majority was the Russian population. Today we have about 1 million Kyrgyz citizens who lives in Russia. So almost 60% of our trade relations is belongs to Russia and Kazakhstan, almost 60%. So we're strongly dependent on our trade relations with Russia, Kazakhstan, and our neighborhood. So we feel that our population who lives in Russia, so Kyrgyz population, that is the both former Russian nationality and Kyrgyz nationalities who migrated to Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they consist almost 1 million, and they have already strongly influenced in our economy. They generate almost the same budget of our economy, which from migrants, of Kyrgyz migrants from Russia, and their value is equal to our national balance. So we want that our Kyrgyz Russian relations, of course, that Russia is a strategic partner for it because of the cultural, historical, and aspects. So we all speak Russian, and we have lots of Kyrgyz Russian population who lives still in Kyrgyzstan. Almost 10% of Russian population is still in the Kyrgyz Republic. So public diplomacy and the relation, the cultural relation between Kyrgyzstan and between Russia is strongly developing now, and we feel that so many economic side, for example, Russian economic private sector now is doing good business in Kyrgyzstan. At the same time, our Kyrgyz private companies investing in Russia. So this is the good area. Of course, we have to develop good cultural relations with Russia. Russia is still our biggest strategic partner. We have lots of historical, economical, and cultural aspects, and we want that this area, of course, will influence in solving the future problems. And the legacy which we have, the environmental aspects, we are inviting also of our Russian partners that they have to be involved in solving this problem, because this is not only the Kyrgyz problem, this is the problem which belongs to all our region.
Additional questions or comments for the ambassador, or a follow-up question? Or? Okay, and then we'll come.
Yes, the platform for exercising public diplomacy happens to be media, traditional media in many cases. I was wondering about problems of Russian-speaking media in Kyrgyzstan, since in Ukraine it's one of our problems hindering us back towards
We in
joining
Kyrgyzstan, the Central
Western
Asian in Kyrgyzstan is the only country, I think, Kyrgyzstan, which has officially in the constitution introduced Russian language as official language. So we have no problem with Russian media or Kyrgyz media. We are even more comfortable in the public servants to use Russian language than Kyrgyz language. We still feel our problem, for example, to develop our own Kyrgyz language, because we cannot, for example, when our nationalists in Kyrgyzstan, they want to promote Kyrgyz language, so we feel the problem that when it comes to the legislation, we cannot write any legislation in Kyrgyz language. So that is why we have to develop our Kyrgyz language, and we have to do a lot in order to promote the Kyrgyz language. And the problem of interethnic conflict, which we faced just recently in the south of the region. So it was the part of the problem was the problem of language problem, because the Uzbek population in the south was educating in Uzbek language, and after they graduated, they was not able to use it diplomas which was not recognized in Uzbekistan. So now we understand that we have to develop our own language, which is Kyrgyz language, and then the schools, they have to have, but at the same time, every culture has to preserve its own language, but the Kyrgyz language should be the language of our state.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for this very interesting information that you provided to us. Regarding the uranium mines that were extracted there, uranium which is extracted is not enriched uranium. It is raw uranium, most probably. And does it pose any threat to the health if it is not enriched? This is one thing. Secondly, from my very vague knowledge of the topography of the region, the uppermost country on the river Sirdarya and Amudarya is Kyrgyzstan itself. So if the measures have to be taken to prevent the contamination of the water, these measures have to be taken in Kyrgyzstan rather than in the lower part of the downstream part of the rivers. But from your explanation, I draw the conclusion that it is perhaps the duty of the Kyrgyz authorities, but Kyrgyzstan cannot take all these measures because it is costly, and it is the countries which will benefit the most are downstream countries. Why Kyrgyzstan will pay this for the benefit of the downstream countries? Is this conclusion right?
Thank you, Excellency, for your question. And Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, there's two countries which has huge deposits of uranium waste, and this is the two countries which has the beginning of rivers, which we supply the rivers for irrigation for the downstream countries. And the measurement which has been done by the World Health Organization, it really makes sense and influence in the health of the population. During the Soviet Union period, this analysis of experts was not available for the public. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, it became open and public, so then the people does not want to live in these mountainous regions, so they want to come down because of this effect on the health. So today, since we have such a big problem, and we even in the Soviet Union, this results was not available for the governments, because even there was no map where these huge deposits is located. So it was under this very strict and secret terms was kept, and now it is open for the public, and the public understand that this is not good to have such a living around this radioactive waste. So the problem, first, of course, the health. Second, it's a very dangerous very dangerous, not only for the downstream countries, for Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, who use this water for the irrigation and to produce cotton, and to actually this makes economically very sensitive for all the Central Asian states. And we have, why I am choosing this topic, because we have the common position of all the Central Asian states. We have common understanding that we need to solve this problem, but this requires so huge amount of resources that is really needed to clean out or to this radioactive places, because for the future and for the future of Central Asia it's very dangerous, and we want to prove that we need the partnership. We need partnership, international partnership, to solve this problem. Kyrgyzstan, of course, we cannot do it ourselves, and the downstream countries, they do understand, and they also cooperate with us and recalling international community to get together in order to solve problem. For the international community, it's a big problem too, because it requires billions of dollars. It requires billions of dollars, and for the international community, it's better to keep them in Kyrgyzstan, not to touch this problem, but it's to keep in Kyrgyzstan and to open up. Because it really requires huge resources. But we are trying to bring to attention for the international community that this is the big problem. This is not the problem for Kyrgyzstan, and even if we cooperate just the countries of Central Asia, so we will be not able to solve this problem. We want that United States will cooperate with us. We want that Russia will cooperate with us, and we understand this, that the legacy, it's a result of the it's a product of the Cold War period, and we want that these countries also will understand and to help us to solve this problem, because of that they use technologies and the resources is available. As a possible cooperation for this problem, we propose in Rio 20 just recently that these countries like Kyrgyzstan, so we have huge foreign debt, almost equal to our GDP. So we propose swap operation for sustainable development, that if multilateral institutions like World Bank and IMF will be able to go for the swap operation with Kyrgyzstan for sustainable development, Kyrgyzstan is ready to start the program for the uranium waste management in the Central Asian states, both for Kazakhstan and both for Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. So we want to bring to attention that there is a resources available which we can use, and we have problem with our national economy, with budget, which is foreign debt. We cannot, for example, to contribute from our budget so many resources for the environmental aspects. And since environmental aspects is a global issue, it's also influence on the global security issue. So we want to encourage international community that they will support us.
Do the Russians decline responsibility for what they have done? Because the uranium which was extracted was used by Russians in the past. So do they now decline responsibility? Don't they accept the responsibility of what they have done in the past?
We
The
don't want
uranium which was extracted was used by
Yeah.
the Russians, isn't
we
it?
don't want. We are not insisting that somebody is responsible for that uranium. Of course, this is we were the part of the Soviet Union, and we all are responsible. But the legacies of this uranium became in the territory of Kyrgyzstan, and we call Russia, since Rosatom has experts. The Rosatom has experts and has maps and everything. What is inside in the mountains? What is this uranium? What is containing these uraniums? And we want that the Russia partners will cooperate with us, and they do. They express that they will cooperate. But of course, Russia itself, and it's not possible. Another problem is that these areas where we have such a kind of radioactive waste, it is not strictly controlled and is not very safe. And since we are very close to Afghanistan and to the very sensitive to terrorism, so this area should be protected and not be used for terrorist purposes.
Well, thank you very much. On that note, we do actually need to bring this to a conclusion, but I'd ask you all to please join me in expressing our gratitude to His Excellency Ambassador Muktar Djumaliev. Thank you.